You've spent your life saying yes when every part of you knew it should be no. You've smiled through your pain, swallowed words to keep others comfortable, absorbed feelings, hoping that one day you'd be noticed. Exhaustion drips from your bones, and still you believe there's no other path. What if I told you that this isn't your destiny? That the weight you carry, the guilt, the obligation, it isn't who you were meant to be? What if someone told you that your sensitivity, all along, was not a flaw, but a hidden invitation to awaken? You are an empath. You feel deeply. You give without pause. But there comes a moment, unannounced, when the question hits, what if I stop? That pause, that daring inhale of truth, is where everything changes. Carl Jung called this process individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are, not who you have been molded to be. And for empaths, this journey is seismic, not because you lose something, because you finally stop living for what others expect. Today, I want to walk you through what unfolds when an empath stops people-pleasing and starts seeing the truth. I'll share the hardest parts, the confrontation with the unconscious, the moment the mask falls, the guilt that finally fades. And I'll show you what grows in the space that others built around your giving. Clarity, strength, grounded compassion, sovereignty. By the end of this video, you'll recognize the signs that you're awakening. You'll understand how to hold yourself while setting boundaries. And you'll know that choosing yourself doesn't make you selfish. It makes you whole. So stay with me till the last sign. Because often, it's at the edge of change where the biggest gift lies. We begin where most empaths began, before they knew the word empath. In childhood or young life, perhaps you absorbed more than you should have. You learned that peace depended on your giving, that your value came from being needed. These aren't bad lessons, just early coping strategies. But over time, they calcify into patterns. I must help, always agree, never disappoint. Carl Jung's concept of the persona, the mask we wear to look acceptable, becomes central here. Empaths often wear the nice helper mask, the always there mask. Underneath, much remains unseen. Unexpressed anger, unclaimed preferences, buried identity. This pattern is reinforced by external rewards. Praise when you help. Avoidance of conflict. When you ignore your discomfort. But what's rewarded externally is neglected internally. The person who you might have been if you hadn't overgiven is pushed aside. Then comes the question that shifts everything. What if I stopped giving away my energy? What if I stopped bending to ease others' discomfort, even when it hurts me? This moment, Jung would say, is when consciousness begins. The unconscious, that reservoir of all parts of ourselves we've rejected, begins to stir. You feel irritation where you once felt only obligation. You feel tired in relationships where once your heart leapt at the idea of helping. These are early tremors of awakening. I want to introduce a new insight here. Most empaths don't consider how much energy is leaking, not just from caring, but from maintaining false approval. Every time you say, "sure," when you mean, "I don't want to," there's an analog leak. Energy lost. Over years, it becomes cumulative exhaustion, sometimes physical symptoms. This isn't about becoming schuld or uncaring. It's about reclaiming your capacity to decide what to absorb and what to release. That reclamation is the root of your sovereignty. One of Jung's most powerful observations is the role of the shadow, the parts of ourselves we reject, hide, or deny. For empaths, many of those parts are built from sacrifice, anger at being taken for granted, tears unshed, needs unmet. When individuation begins, there's often a sharp, uncomfortable confrontation. I call it the collision with the unconscious. You realize that a large part of your identity was built on being responsible for other people's feelings. You realize you've absorbed roles: caretaker, emotional buffer, fixer, because you believed being needed equaled being loved. Jung taught, one does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. That means you don't just aspire to be kind. You face the rage, resentment, shame, guilt, all the dark parts you've tried to avoid. Here is a new insight. This collision is seldom gradual. It can feel sudden, like seeing your reflection in a fractured mirror. Those bursts of insight can be disorienting. You may feel unmoored because the identity that held you together is dissolving. Empaths, during this phase, often mislabel this darkness as failure or fear they're becoming someone awful. But the shadow is not evil. It's vital. It holds your unclaimed power, your authenticity, your unmet self-love. In one of Jung's examples, he showed patients who had never acknowledged their own suppressed anger because they believed compassion meant always being kind. When they allowed that anger to emerge, honestly, it didn't lead to cruelty. Instead, it led to boundaries, clarity. With the shadow awakened, you begin to see the first visible changes, signs that you are shifting. Sign 1. Energy Reversal. Your energy stops pouring outward unchecked. Instead, you start protecting your inner space. Social interactions that felt draining before now leave you with reserves, sometimes a spark. You stop feeling obligated to absorb others' bad moods. You stop apologizing for being tired. You start saying, "I need rest," without guilt. Sign 2. Death of the mask. Remember the persona, the polite, nicest person mask? That begins to crack. You stop acting to please. You stop hiding your true thoughts. You tell someone you're exhausted instead of pushing through. You express what you want instead of what others expect. The acceptance of social risk increases, saying no, being real. But the reward is relief, authenticity. As you let go of the mask, you may also feel loss of identity, of flattering roles, even friendships built on the helpful you. That loss is part of the necessary pruning. It hurts, but it's essential to clear space for who you are becoming. Sign 3. Projection. Recall. You stop projecting your own sensitivities onto people you expect to get you. You stop idealizing people who are kind in superficial ways. You begin to see people as they are. Those whose behavior you once excused, you no longer gloss over hurtful patterns. You realize that irritation at someone else often reveals a buried part of you. Perhaps because you've suppressed your own need for respect, kindness, or spoken truth. Sign 4. Boundaries become sacred. This is one of the most healing signposts. Not just setting boundaries, but treating them as inviolable. Saying no when it matters. No elaborate justification. No guilt for needing space. You begin listening to inner signals, your fatigue, your longing, your limits. You choose relationships that honor your whole self. Many empaths struggle here because boundaries feel like rejection. But healthy boundaries are not walls. They are fences that protect the garden. They let what is nourishing in and what drains out. When you maintain them, you don't become isolated. You become centered, clear about who you are. Sign 5. The guilt disappears. Years of bending, apologizing, fearing you've hurt others begin to unravel. When you stop rejecting parts of yourself, guilt loosens its grip. You realize that much of the guilt was projected onto you from others' expectations or manipulations. You begin to see guilt more clearly, not as truth, but as signal to reclaim your needs. Sign 6. Authenticity. Over approval. You begin living your truth even when others disagree. You stop performing, no longer saying yes just to be liked, no longer mimicking reactions. You choose what feels aligned, even if it costs social validation. You may lose some people, but you gain alignment with your own core. Added insight. Authenticity demands courage. It can trigger backlash, guilt trips, confusion in others. But over time, authenticity stabilizes your life. It attracts people who resonate with your real self, rather than those who needed the old version of you. Sign 7. The healer heals self. Empaths often play healer for others, but individuation demands that healing first turn inward. You begin asking, what do I require? Nurturing your inner child, listening to your body, recognizing that you can't pour from an empty cup. You begin doing what replenishes you: rest, creativity, truth. Sign 8. Conscious connection. This is the blossoming. You connect with people from your authentic center, no longer giving blindly, but giving from wakefulness. You feel empathy, but you no longer absorb others' emotional debris. Relationships become mutual. Respect, reciprocity, honesty, rather than one-sided dependence. This phase is also where you learn to choose your communities, not because of obligation, but because of resonance. You may distance from toxic dynamics. You may reorganize your life, work, friendships, romantic relationships around what honors your integrity. Transformation isn't linear. After the early signs, old patterns will flare. You may feel lonely. The mask may try to reassert. Relationships may strain. People who relied on your constant giving may push back or guilt you. That's normal. Physical health often tells the truth your mind avoids. When you stop being an emotional sponge, stress may lower. Sleep improves. Chronic exhausting patterns, burnout, fatigue, digestive upset can begin to heal. But sometimes there's a backlash. The nervous system recalibrates. You might feel more sensitive at first, like you're raw. Relationship shifts are inevitable. Some deepen, some fall away. That's not a punishment. It's sorting. The great relationship purge isn't about blame. It's about alignment. The people who adapt to your boundary, who celebrate your growth, these are the ones worth keeping. The others? Let them go. Your growth often means shedding roles others assigned to you, not because you're unlovable, but because you are choosing authenticity over model. Here's what many empaths don't get told. When you reclaim your sensitivity, when you stop pleasing everyone, something powerful emerges. Psychological sovereignty. This is not power over others. It's power over yourself. It's clarity about what you want. It's inner alignment. You still feel deeply, but you choose what to absorb, when to act, and what to express. Jung's notion of the self isn't ego alone. It is the integrated whole, the conscious and unconscious, the strength and tenderness, the assertive and the receptive. For empaths, sovereignty means balancing being caring with being grounded. It's not about being hard. It's about being whole. Sovereignty lets you participate in life rather than being driven by fear of disapproval. When you operate from that place, your relationships, work, creativity all shift. You contribute not because of guilt, but because from overflow. You help when inspired, not when obligated. You lead with compassion, but you maintain your core. Here's what I want you to hold on to. You are not broken for being sensitive. The parts of you you feel ashamed of, anger, desire, boundaries, are your compass pointing toward wholeness. Individuation isn't fixing you. It's allowing you to rediscover the self that was always there beneath the people-pleasing mask. Growth will cost something. You will lose what is often familiar: roles, expectations, relationships built on dependency. It will feel scary sometimes, but what you gain is irreplaceable: clarity, freedom, authentic connection, alignment with your values. Choosing yourself is not selfish. It's your duty to your own soul. When your boundaries are sacred, your empathy becomes alchemy, not burden. When your authenticity over approval becomes your rhythm, your voice becomes your power. If you recognize more than one of those awakening signs, energy reversal, the death of the mask, guilt dissolving, you're already on the path Jung laid out. You're already becoming sovereign. So trust the process. Trust being sensitive. Trust your inner knowing. Let each painful truth become a foundation for your strength. You don't lose empathy when you stop people-pleasing. You win your life back. Thank you for walking through this with me. If this journey spoke to you, leave a comment. My breaking point became my breakthrough. Subscribe for more wisdom that supports growing sensitive souls. And remember, the world doesn't need more depleted empaths. It needs conscious ones.